Share this out. Share it out. We're getting ready for our show. We'll be starting shortly. Share and share and share. Get some people on this stream. It's going to be a great show. A great show for Facebook. Join us and have all your friends join us too. Buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy. You're not in Kansas anymore. Oh yeah, this is live. This is live. If you're wondering, this is live. Hang in there for a few more minutes. Just want people to join the stream so they can catch the whole show. You miss the beginning, you miss a lot. So hang in there. We're about to start. Sometimes people complain we have such long intros, but it's well worth it because a lot of people come in a few minutes late. They miss the intro, they miss kind of the overview we do at the beginning, and then they're lost for half the show. So just bear with us. We'll get there. Not very much longer. Hold on. Recovering for a few technical difficulties we're having to get started, but we're right on it. We got it fixed. We're coming right in. Be a doozy tonight. We've got got Cindy jockeying the show, the main narrator, the main researcher. I'm over here running the sound and switching and adding my commentary. Join us. You won't regret it. Welcome. We've been off for a while. We had a vacation, but we're back to work. But we're glad to see you too. You know. Happy to see y'all. Happy to be here. Been itching to do a show for a week, and then Thanksgiving happened, and travel happened, blizzards happened. We're back in our studio, got everything set up, ready to roll. The show will start shortly. Welcome. If you're having trouble with or getting kicked off the page, what I do is I exit Facebook entirely, go right back into Facebook and start it up again. I don't know why the video loads. I get them sometimes. I monitor the show with my phone. And, a good piece of advice is that you just basically back out of Facebook, shut down the app, start up the app again. Many times I will bring you right back in and you can stay in longer. Something that's on our ends on the Facebook end. Or it may be your device. All these things are all things that allow you to see what's going on Facebook, and Facebook isn't that friendly when it comes to streams, even though they created it for us to use. We appreciate that.
Welcome to Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPP-LP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. On my show tonight, I will be focusing on what I have called the frauds within the missing and murdered Indigenous women movement. Missing and murdered Indigenous women frauds. And it is a very serious problem that we must expose. It is a very serious topic, that of missing and murdered Indigenous women. It is a huge problem. We could spend hours and hours and shows, and in fact, we have discussed this topic many times. I have spoken about how it is interlaced and interlocked with everything we saw going all the way back to Standing Rock, and now connected to the Border Support Network. So, for this reason, I think it's very important for us to address the missing and murdered Indigenous women frauds. And tonight I'm going to cover all of that, plus how this connects to the Trump's administration's recent declaration that he will create a task force for missing and murdered Indigenous women, and how Native societies and Native communities have responded. Who specifically has responded negatively and rejected Trump's task force to help combat missing and murdered Indigenous women problems. It's almost like an epidemic. and some of the dangerous and problematic people within the missing and murdered Indigenous women movement. We'll be exposing them tonight and the rape culture on the progressive left. But first, I want to thank everyone for being here. Please check us out on our social media platforms on 88.1 FM Fargo-Moorhead. Like our page, follow our page on Facebook, please, so you can be notified of our shows. You can also follow the People's Press Project and Mexican Online on Facebook. You can check us out at PPP_media on Twitter. Email me at cindy@kppfm.com or duke@kppfm.com. And if you'd like to leave us a voicemail with your thoughts and comments, there's about 3 minutes time. Call 701-566-0917. Duke, I want to just quickly jump into what we're going to be talking about tonight.
No problem.
Because it is a jam-packed show.
Oh, yeah.
And I will have you inform folks once we've gotten through some of this about how they can support our work and such. But
no problem.
I'm gonna switch things up.
No problem.
So first, let me say that this has been an issue that people have been bringing up to me since Standing Rock. People that are dangerous to vulnerable women, children, and elderly, to people with disabilities and queer people. All of these different intersectionalities are vulnerable to predators, dangerous and violent people, and dangerous and violent felons. But that has not stopped them from rearing their ugly head within the missing and murdered Indigenous women movements, campaigns, and leadership. That perhaps is the most disturbing thing. That there has been a tone deafness ever since Standing Rock about what it means to protect the sacred. It feels to me as if many of those in the leadership of Standing Rock, in those different categories that I have talked about so much, security, medics, spiritual leaders, elders, what else did you have out there in those groups?
Spiritual leaders.
Oh, media.
Elders. Oh, media. Yes,
all of the new media that was created.
Yep, exactly.
And
activists and
the groups of hero activists, water protectors, as they began to be called when they were there, as well as their partners in the world of Hollywood, in the world of politics.
Yep.
Influencers, politicians, people that are making policy, people that are driving policy. And this disturbing tone deafness toward fraud, crimes of all sorts, including kidnapping, rape, framing people for crimes they didn't commit, which they did to Kathleen Bennett. When I saw what kinds of horrible criminal activity the so-called quote-unquote leadership of people from Standing Rock, which included Native American leadership like Mulaney Stoneman, the fake medic, like Bill Runningfisher, the fake marshal, like Frank Archambault, the security guy that's a sex offender against children, registered sex offender. Archie Foolbear, another child molester and abuser in his own family, no less. The Red Wolf Pope serial rapist who was brought to the camp. There are so many stories of thefts, of drugs, of weapons, of violent acts that took place, of arson, of property damage, theft, the list goes on and on and on, that happened. And when people complained and brought it up, or when yours truly dared to speak of it on this show, we were told, shh, you're hurting the movement.
Yeah, you're hurting the movement. The movement of crime.
Don't talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
You're hurting the movement. One person and their wrongdoing does not define us.
Yep.
We have reported on this program not only of the leadership at Standing Rock condoning, uplifting, giving agency to these criminal elements in the camp, but also of nonprofit organizations associated with them, or NGOs funding them, people in the media praising them, and people in Hollywood promoting them. And we have repeatedly watched over the years as those folks, even those who've been caught lying, defrauding, and hurting people, or having had a history of being caught doing horrible things like Jordan Sheridan and Chelsea Lyons raping one of their media co-workers from one of these media platforms at Standing Rock. Everyone seemed to want to rush to the defense of these criminals and defend them and protect them and cover for them. And that continues to be the case. And it is even more disturbing when you see it within the movement of what is supposed to be the protection of women, children, missing people. So for that reason, it seemed very strange to me to hear that people in the leadership of, or that at least that have platforms to speak on the topic, were upset and had negative reactions to Trump's announcement that he's going to start a task force to deal with missing and murdered Indigenous women, which he said his administration and himself take very seriously. And I believe that it's supposed to be a 2-year thing. We're going to have it for two years, and then it dissolves.
And then they do a report after 2 years. And any time a task force, that's what they do. They don't go out and actually change anything. They come back with recommendations, which goes through a whole another procedure with another legislative body. A task force can be very useful, but to me it's like next 2 years they're going to study stuff, and in 2 years they're going to give a report. Meanwhile, more and more people go missing. More and more people aren't found. More and more people aren't prosecuted for kidnapping and all the things that have been happening to people. And so I'm always like skeptical at a task force. You know, I know they're useful. I was on one once, but 2 years and a report.
Yes, but I think it is very useful, and I hope and I pray that if our president has the ability to hear what I'm sharing on this show about the missing and murdered Indigenous movement, then I think that it would be wise for him to know about the problems and studying them at length, because there is a lot of smoke screens covering up for very nefarious people within the movement and within its leadership. People who are themselves abusers of women, who are themselves abusers of children, who are themselves rapists. And the president needs to know that. The president needs to know that people within the leadership and people within the funding of these groups, who I am sure have either not done their homework, not done their due diligence, and or even finding out these people are dangerous, problematic predators, many of them with felony records, they will still defend them and keep them in places where they have access to vulnerable people, and they can do it again. I think as a society, as a community, we have a right to demand standards from our spiritual leaders. We have a right to demand standards from the people who, with prophecy and ceremony, are demanding the moral authority to speak on these issues and lead on these issues and be funded by the federal government to protect missing and murdered Indigenous women. I think we have a right to know who is doing that work, who is heading up those organizations, what their backgrounds are. Are they safe to be putting at the head or anywhere near organizations that are supposed to help vulnerable people? I think, in my opinion, no. I don't think they should be there. Some people would say, you know, people did their time.
Yeah.
They've served for their crime. They deserve second opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, even sex offenders deserve a place to be able to sleep, a place to be able to live.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that we as communities have the right to know where those sex offenders are in our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And whether or not they're close to a school. There's a whole website about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the system, by the way, is flawed, right? So there are already people who get through the cracks because of the sentencing guidelines, because of how they were pleading.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they didn't have to register for as long as we would like for them to have to register, so we know that this was a predator that was violent, that raped people, and especially that took advantage of children. I think we have a right to know that, especially if these people are supposed to be some kind of leaders of security or anything else.
Yeah, and taking over the whole task force that's going to be a government study of the problem, and if they're in the leadership and in the organizations, and they're not being checked, and the Department of Justice isn't actually putting, criteria out that's going to get them the best connected people that are actually astute people. It's flawed. It's flawed, and it's not fair to us, not fair to us as a community.
Mm-mm. But I think the president's plan to study who's on the ground, what are their backgrounds, who is saying that they're doing the work, because I would like for the president to know, I would like for the people in this task force to know that the idea of putting forth a group, an organization, or a bunch of Native leaders that came out of Standing Rock that claimed to be doing missing and murdered Indigenous women work, that is not a cure-all. One of those people is Mulaney Stoneman. And she was the principal criminal and kidnapper that put an innocent woman, Kathleen Bennett, in jail for a crime she couldn't have committed, and in which we proved she did not commit. And that should tell you how flawed these organizations and groups are at finding people that are, not dangerous, not going to re-offend and possibly put people at risk. In this article in BS Norrell Blogspot, there is a response from a Native leader, and the headline reads, "Native leader says Trump's empty promises won't halt the crisis of murdered and missing Indigenous women." By the way, folks, I saw Deb Haaland tweet or comment that she was upset about the task force.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I saw other people from the Indigenous Environmental Network and many of the people that we have talked about that are in leadership or have platforms on social media saying, this is not enough, and he just wants to interfere by having the FBI get involved into our investigations.
Really?
What we need is this and what we need is that.
What they're hankering for is that they get picked. If they were picked to be on the task force, they'd be like, this is the greatest thing, we're on this task force. Those folks are looking for a way to milk another organization into get more money, because when you're on task force, you get travel, you get stipends, you get food, you get to go to the meetings and things are taken care of, and it's usually more than you actually need, and you can pocket some of that money. Like I said, I've been on a task force before, and if those people would have been picked in the first place, they would be championing this, but they must be left out.
No, but that you hit the nail on the head, because Deb Haaland said that they were going to have a say in what happened, and they were going to be at the forefront of dealing with this issue that primarily is affecting them, even if the president doesn't consult, doesn't do proper consultation with the groups and native groups and organization doing the work. I think the president is very right to be very cautious and very wary of who's put into the native leadership of these organizations, because what I've seen so far scared the bejeebus out of me. And that's why I think you should watch this show, share this show, make sure people who need to see it see what's really behind this. So I wanted to point out something from this article that stuck out to me about where this particular rejection of the task force, which again is supposed to help figure out what's going on with the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And this woman named Didi Ibarra, who is the tribal chair in San Francisco of the Rumsen Amaturataj Ohonle tribe, Ohlone tribe, excuse me, was quoted as saying, President Trump is trying to entice us by signing a deal saying he's going to form a task force, which I believe is not true.
Really? He's
using us to try to get our vote, to try to get our people to back him. So he's trying to do something nice. He's trying to pretend he's going to do something nice so we'll vote for him. But I don't think he's actually going to do it. And he's trying to trick us into getting us to vote for him. And then it says Ibarra said this during the American Indian Movement's Thanksgiving feast.
Oh.
And Ibarra is also on the board of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and People in California. And she is the assistant director of AIM Southern California.
Oh, boy.
So this is important.
Yeah.
Because we saw AIM at Standing Rock. We've seen specifically AIM of Southern California.
Yes, exactly.
And this missing and murdered Indigenous women movement, orgs popping up everywhere, led by people like Jay Ponte, who's neither Indigenous nor a woman, and Susie Desba, aka Vanessa Dundon, who again has no experience in searching for missing and murdered women, has no background, no track record in doing any of the things that they are positioning themselves to receive financial federal assistance for being experts on the ground at.
Yeah, they've been at this for a long time. When the state of North Dakota put aside money, people started lining up, and that's what they started building. Putting a bunch of posters on your Facebook site and said you're searching for missing Indigenous women, missing and murdered Indigenous women. They started positioning themselves a long time ago, and the legislators started to put bills in that would actually fund this. Heidi Heitkamp had some money in it that people started lining up right away, and now the federal government has this set up, and it's funded through the Department of Justice.
And Hoven.
And Hoven.
On that bill.
Yeah, Hoven did that bill from North Dakota. And all these Standing Rock phonies are lining up, and they've been lining up for months on this.
Years, Duke, years. Literally years, because Cindy McCain and Heidi Heitkamp, this
That's
is starting to look more and more to me like some kind of quid pro quo. I mean, I get it. I know Heidi would never have gotten into office without the Native vote. And leaders that from the Standing Rock movement, like Chase Iron Eyes, helped her get that vote.
Yeah, that's right.
But we know that the Lakota Law Project raked in millions of dollars for 2 clients. Mm-hmm. And then we know that all of these other Native American law groups raked in millions of dollars for legal defense that they did not use on the legal defense of indigenous people the way they said they would. They just kept that cash. Now they're involving themselves in the border crisis, creating and then being the saviors of the same border crisis. And they're getting themselves involved in the missing and murdered indigenous women game. They may not have any credentials. They may not have any experience, but no matter, they will be the faces. They will be the leaders. I've been telling you this now for a while. I've been telling you this now for years.
Warning, actually.
Warning all of you. And now the president says, I'm going to look into this. And Deb Haaland says, you got to include the people that we pick. Really? And then this woman from Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Group in California, AIM of Southern California, and tribal chair and part of the AIM movement is upset about it.
Yeah.
And the reason she's upset is because she thinks it's fake. And then she goes on to say that Trump's executive order isn't worth any more than any other piece of paper that they signed to help Native people. Remember the treaties that are no more than a worthless piece of paper. We need to be out there. We need to bring awareness, she said, urging people to stand in solidarity and be out there looking for missing people. The word must get out where people are missing from so people can look for them. Ibarra said, we must make people accountable for what they have done to harm our people, our women, our men, our children, and bring awareness of who is missing. Ibarra's warning came after President Trump's executive order on Tuesday establishing a task force, Operation Lady Justice, which he claimed would address violence against missing and murdered Native women. We will leverage every resource we have to bring safety to our tribal communities, and we will not waver in our mission, Trump said. We're taking this very seriously. This has never been done before, and I've seen it just by reading and watching the news. It's a very serious problem. It's a horrible problem. Okay. That sounds like he's trying to figure it out to me.
Well, it is. And the things she said are true, too, but the idea that they have to be at the leadership, we have to be on that task force. We need to be in charge of it. You supply information. Give them what you got. If you have a problem solver in your community, they're going to actually address something in your community, get all the information to them so they can actually have it and solve the problem. You can't sit there and think that your ego is so high that you have to be the person in charge. You just make sure you organize your community and get the information out there so they can actually address it.
Exactly. But there's something very sinister about the groups and the organizations that are mentioned that converge there, because these particular organizations and groups hide something. They hide some of their own personal violent history. They hide their gang-like tactics. They hide the fact that they support leadership and people who are dangerous, that they don't have a problem working with even once they've found out who they are, what they are.
Yeah.
One such person was a man by the name of Pete Heflin, who turned out to be a fugitive from the law in California and a rapist of women and children, minors. He was arrested at a camp at the Trans-Paco pipeline in Texas. And the co-founder, Frankie Arona, who I've shown you has been with the Border Support Network, Carrizo Come Crudo tribe, and tribal leader Juan B. Mancias at the Texas Butterfly Center, Eli Jackson Cemetery Protection Camp. Right?
Yeah.
Same guy who was protesting at the Texas Capitol.
Okay. Yeah.
Same guy who was at Standing Rock that, you've seen with the AIM jacket sitting behind Duke in that picture that we showed you from the Texas Capitol. Right behind your head is Arona. If you actually tilt your head, no, there he is with his fluffy feather hat.
Okay.
He's always got that
yeah, I see.
Same hat he's got in the picture I've got behind me. And in the caption for that photo right behind you, Duke, there was a tag that said to Society of Native Nations, the Carrizo Come Crudo tribe, American Indian Movement, and Extinction Rebellion ATX, which I'm assuming is Austin, Texas, since a lot of these are from Texas.
Yeah.
In the house. That's what the caption is for the photo behind you on that day, on the protests that took place in the Texas Capitol against a law, by the way, that would penalize organizers of protests that put infrastructure projects like pipelines, etc., at risk.
Oh, yeah. I remember
that would charge them criminally.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember also that sex worker, what is she, a full service sex worker?
Oh, Lilith Sinclair?
Lilith Sinclair, a.k.a. Kiara Horsley, was also at that protest at the Texas State Capitol. And folks, these organizations work together. I think that they have a duty to find out who and to know about the history of the organizations they're working with, to find out along the way whether or not they're acting in good faith. They have, criminals in their leadership that could be dangerous to the campaign, the movement, what have you. But for some reason, these organizations have been working for a long time, ever since Standing Rock at least, and they have not been able to root out criminals like Pete Heflin, a.k.a. Pedro Rabgo, I don't know how to say his name, Regabo Gutierrez, who was arrested for being a fugitive of the law for decades. And here is a video that was shot by a Josh Michener that captured the arrest by the sheriff of Pete Heflin, a.k.a. Pedro Gutierrez. Here's that clip.
So I'm gonna have to ask to come with you, Pete. Can he drive me over there? Can we follow you over there? So he can follow me. I don't gotta follow him. Can I drive with him though? And you can come right behind us. You're gonna have to drive with him.
That doesn't make sense. He hasn't broken the law. So
that's not a fictitious social security card is. That's a bad identity card. That's illegal. So you're saying I can carry a fake social security card?
But that says you that. Do you have a warrant for it?
I already told you.
But you're not presenting it to us.
I've already told you. I do have one. Okay?
Where's the warrant?
We already have it in the system. I don't have to have it physical.
You do have a signature, right? A judge's signature on the warrant?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we see the copy or you have an email? Screenshot?
We've been through this.
It's at the office. So, if we can just go ahead. Come on, Pete. You don't have any.
You'd have fun being arrested for supposedly having a fictitious Social Security card or presenting one. This man does not have a warrant. He does not have the warrant for.
Check out that
Pete.
Society of
He
Native
has no
Nations jacket
paperwork at all
emblem.
to take
You see it on the
with
back
him.
of
He
his
is
jacket
taking Pete into
and the aim patch at the
for
bottom.
what? We don't even have a reason for, I guess, presenting a piece of paper that they don't have or a warrant that they don't have. Yeah, I'm just as baffled as everybody else.
So,
Oh yeah.
let me tell you, there was a lot of people that were baffled. Lots of people that were baffled because I think, at the time, the way that he was looked up to, protected, defended by people at the camp made people think that there was some kind of unfair treatment by police that made them question whether or not the police would even have a warrant. And there was another video in which the demand for this warrant was made even more clear. There was almost,
Rushing the cops.
resisting arrest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Check it out. Same guy, Josh.
Wow, those girls are.
They're following the sheriff to the van.
With a viable judge's signature. Not just
Yelling.
not a judge. You don't have a warrant. You don't have a warrant. No, they don't have a warrant. You don't have a warrant. Where is it? Where is the warrant? Produce the warrant. Where is the warrant?
You're not helping at all.
Thank you. Why are you not? Come back here and show us the fucking warrant. Where is it? Where's the warrant? Where's the warrant?
The jig is up.
Yep.
Now, I just want to point out some things about those two videos. First of all, Frankie Arona, co-founder of Native Nations, Society of Native Nations, along with the fugitive felon rapist of women and children, Pete Heflin, a.k.a. Pete Gutierrez, and defending that guy, asking for proof of a warrant, saying, you shouldn't be able to do this. You can't take this guy away. Just as the women did in the second video, maybe not as forcefully or rudely or loudly, but he did defend him. He tried to defend him. Note that Pedro, that's his real name, Pedro, okay? His name is Pedro. You know why? Because he is Hispanic, as it says on his arrest, on his mug shot, on his on the arrest, on his rap sheet. Okay, I'm gonna show you that in a minute. But I wanted to, and that's his given name, Pedro.
Okay.
That's how you say it in Spanish. Okay, Pedro Ragabo Gutierrez. Sounds very Latino. Sounds very Mexican to me. Okay. And I'm going to show you more evidence of the fact that he's probably fake Indianing, just like Monsevillas, just like so many of these other folks. Okay. And incidentally, he was hanging out with Frankie Arona. Here's a pic of them in front of the truck. Looks like a Ford F-150, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does.
With the Society of Native Nations emblem on the side of the truck. Looks very official, doesn't it?
Yep.
And of course, both Pete and he are wearing jackets that have the AIM
The AIM emblem?
the AIM emblem and the flag of the Society of Native Nations.
Oh, yeah,
And the emblem of the Society of Native Nations is something they're both constantly associated with. I just want to make sure it's pretty clear to everyone that is the case. But I also want to say that in the first video where Arona is defending and trying to stop the arrest, defending this guy, this criminal, and trying to stop the arrest, Pete says, can I go in his car? Can I go in Frankie Arona's car instead of the police car, and you can follow us, he says.
Okay.
You can follow, the sheriff can follow us in his car, but I want to go drive to the police station with this guy. What do you think that's about? This is a fugitive from the law who's been a fugitive from the law for a very long time and was considered a moderate to high risk.
What is his attorney or something like that? The attorney's going to turn himself in? Sounds to me like he wanted to have him get his story straight before he got in there and tried to manipulate
Story
him.
straight?
Yeah.
There's no getting out of this.
Yeah.
They already have you. They already know
They already
you're
have
a
a warrant
wanted
for your
felon,
arrest.
fugitive of the law.
Well, and they might take off. I wouldn't let them
Exactly.
go. I wouldn't let the person I'm there to arrest I go ride in someone else's car. I'll just follow you down to the police station. People are already yelling you don't have a warrant. The guys, I don't know why the guy didn't produce a warrant right then. He maybe had it in his car and he didn't want to back off from those people. But it's like, for him to let them ride a different vehicle to follow him, it's like, come on. That would never roll. Never.
Now, let me just tell you, the sheriff, of course, as you saw in the video, did not let that happen. He said, no, dude, you cannot do that. But the fact that he tried tells you that he was either, extrapolating here, because none of this happened, but he wanted it to happen. He wanted to get in the other person's vehicle. And I don't think it was so he could get his story straight. Okay. Well, maybe you're right. I mean, anything is possible. What's more likely in my mind is that he wanted a chance to escape again.
Yeah, that's
and that
probable.
He was going to either tell Frankie, oh, snap, it's time for you to, drive real fast or, hide me some way.
Yeah.
Or... and also, by the way, I'm a fugitive of the law, surprise, because he didn't know, or time is due, and I got to, run from the law again, and you're going to help me.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that he would ask to go in Frank Arona's car, I mean, it could just mean nothing, or it could mean this was his last ditch. And the last ditch was to ask his friend, who presumably, as he later says, did not know a thing about it.
Yeah.
Or more likely, he either did know about it or this guy thought he would help him escape. And that's why he asked to go in his car. Just spitballing. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, once again, I think that... it was a ploy, and plus it's unreasonable. And they wouldn't let you do that. It's like if you had a compelling reason, you could reason with them, whatever. But could I just ride and can you just take them in my car? It's like you wouldn't do that. You just wouldn't do that. It looked like there was not a lot of resistance. There was potential resistance. The crowd was getting aggressive. That law enforcement person was going to put the person in the back and take them to the police station or wherever they're going to process them. His friend could ride in the car behind them, but he's not going to put the person they're arresting in a car and not take them with. Like Cindy said, you could drive off. He could drive off and say he got kidnapped and hit him in the head, and just stage this whole thing,
This Pete Heflin dude was one of the lead activists in the camp along with Frankie Arona.
Yeah.
Here they are in a photo addressing the camp people in what looks like some kind of a kitchen or dining area. And the two men at the front, the one sitting down is Pete or Pedro Gutierrez. And the one standing up is Frankie Arona. Now, the reasons for why the folks in this situation, including Frankie and the women there, reacted the way they did could be many. But let's look at how they, did with the press after. In the San Antonio Express article, there is a headline saying that the short and disruptive life of a pipeline protester. So this was exposed so that people would know that this guy was basically a fraud.
Yeah.
That this guy was, dangerous. And this is what this San Antonio Express says about him. It says that the Presidio County Sheriff's deputies arrested Heflin at a pipeline protest. And this is how they found out that he was a wanted fugitive.
Yeah.
They fingerprinted him. And they confirmed that the ID he had presented was fake and that he was wanted.
Wow.
He was the leader of the Texas environmental movement. He fought against pipeline companies. You already had seen him once before and didn't even realize it. Do you remember that there was a board meeting of the Energy Transfer Partners, and Kelsey Warren was on the panel, and there was a man that stood up and he told one of those very impassioned stories about his life, and Kelsey Warren said he would have a meeting with him and he would agree to talk to him. That was Pete Heflin.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember that?
I vaguely remember that, yeah.
It was all over the media. Mm-hmm. That was him. These people didn't even mind putting someone like Pete at the head of some of their most important actions that took place. And then he was arrested because he had fled at least a decade ago from California. According to this particular article, Frankie Arona said he was stunned, and he was the head of security at the camp.
Yeah.
And Frankie was quoted as saying, this is again the executive director of the Native Nations, Society of Native Nations, and the American Indian Movement in Texas. And he and Gutierrez were both on the board of directors. He said, he was part of our circle. He was part of our family. But then again, we've always been about holding people accountable. No, you haven't.
Huh.
And in this situation, he was definitely wrong. I'm upset with him. The Sierra Club said it too was surprised by the news, but it urged the protest to continue, noting the Trans-Pecos pipeline was within 2 months of completion. We don't see it as something that will deter the movement, Vanessa Ramos, a spokesperson for the environmental nonprofit, said. This is the Sierra Club now.
Yeah.
This is a much bigger than one person. You notice a pattern to this little thing that they keep repeating? This is much bigger than the actions of one person. We will not be deterred by... This is not actions of a... This is crimes.
Yes.
This is felonies. This is rapes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's what he was in for that they keep minimizing. Again, the 56-year-old at the time in 2017, according to this article, was in 1984 sentenced to 9 years for forced rape, 7 years for forced oral sex, and 3 years for controlled substance possession with intent to sell. He served the sentence, concurrently got out of prison 6 years later, was released on parole, and then between 1990 and 97, he was re-imprisoned at least 5 times. For what? Parole violations. He can't stay out of jail. According to corrections records, and in 1998, he was convicted of having sex with a child.
Wow.
A minor. After going back to jail for all the parole violations.
Jeez.
And then he went back to jail. But he was paroled again in 2002. The California Department of Corrections never heard from him again. That's when he disappeared.
That guy, huh?
And turned into and repurposed himself as an eco-activist.
Yep.
As a warrior for AIM.
Wow.
As a founder and board member of this Society of Native Nations. And it says in this article that about 2 months ago, a Presidio County Sheriff's deputy got a tip that Gutierrez, which was known as Pete Heflin, was wanted for a warrant from 2007 out of California. And on that day, while Gutierrez was inside the jail waiting for his wife after a protest, a deputy by the name of Angel Vasquez asked to see his ID. Hi, guy sitting in the police station. You got an ID on you? He whipped out a social security card that was fake.
Wow.
Velasquez let Gutierrez go, but he did check the card and he knew it was fake. So then he went to look for him again.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So he found where they were, and he had him arrested.
All right.
And that's what you just watched.
That's what we just
video,
watched. Okay,
That's
okay.
the video you just saw.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Several deputies stood by, including Sheriff Danny Dominguez, whose body camera caught the whole incident.
Ah.
And he said, they bark like little Chihuahua dogs, but they don't bite.
Oh, yeah.
So he didn't think much of their little,
Charade.
protest.
Yeah, yeah.
Their protest.
Yeah.
And then, let's see. I wanted to show you the warrant because this is important for you to know.
All right.
You know, these folks demanded a warrant. They needed to see a warrant. So here's the warrant, folks. You want to see it?
There it is.
Here it is. It's against Pedro Rabago Gutierrez. And what does it say right there? The motion for the government's own motion pursuant 18 U.S.C. Section 3142, subsection F, subsection 2. And that is under the eligibility for detention. He qualifies under that specific code. Okay? And if you go to the next one, you'll see the second part is findings of fact and law and presumption of innocence, I think it said on that first one. And this is the reason they marked. They marked B, rebuttable presumption arises under USC Section 3143, subsections E and 3. There is rebuttable presumption that no condition or combination of conditions will reasonably assure the appearance. So basically they're saying he's a flight risk.
Yep.
Why do you think that? Well, in this next part of the warrant, it tells you in Section 3 why they think he's a flight risk as described in Section 2. And it says, what's the analysis of the statement of reason for that? And they checked, well, by clear and convincing evidence, no condition or combination of conditions of release would assure the person assure the safety of any other person in the community. That means he's a safety to other people.
He's a danger to other people.
Yes. B, it says the preponderance of the evidence that no condition or condition of conditions of release would assure the defendant's appearance.
Okay.
So he's a flight risk.
Yep.
He's a danger to others. And in addition to that, is there any other reasons that you would feel that this detention is necessary? Yes, he's prior criminal history, and that includes participation in criminal activity while on probation, parole, or supervision, and a history of violence or the use of weapons.
Wow.
So, for all of these reasons, and some more that is on this next page, they said they had to get him immediately. They also checked off prior attempts to evade law enforcement. He's a runner.
Yep.
The use of aliases or false IDs. He lies.
Yep.
And background information that is still unknown or unverified, as well as prior violations of parole, probation, and supervised release.
Whoa.
And it said he was paroled in 2002. So there you have it, folks. There was a warrant, and there was a dang good reason
Why he wouldn't let him go in the other car.
Yeah, and why they needed to detain this man, because he's a dangerous person.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want us to go to the article in the... Oh, wait, I have to show you his registered sex offender rap sheet, okay? Here it is. And what does it say there for his race? Hispanic. Does it say Native American?
No.
Does it say indigenous, mescalero, Apache?
No.
No, it does not. Why wouldn't he? He's not just any old Native American. He's an environmental leader. He's the executive director and founder, board member of the Society of Native Nations. He is the person that got a meeting with Kelsey Warren. He is proudly wearing the AIM jacket, the AIM emblem, and the Society of Native Nations. But it says Hispanic on his rap sheet? Why wouldn't he tell people he was Native American? Maybe because it can't be verified. Okay, so let us go to this article in the Free Beacon that will give us even more information about the protesters standing by the arrested leader, because they stood by this nonsense even after they knew. Check it out. Here's the headline. Exposed of rape. The owner of the protest site says violent rapist was very honorable man, that he would stand by him any day, close quote. This is an article from March 6, 2017. Environmentalists in Texas are standing by their leader, even after it was revealed he'd been imprisoned for various charges, including rape by force, and has been on the run from authorities for over a decade. Protesters were shocked this week when Pedro Ragabo Gutierrez, who went by Pete Heflin while leading protests at the site of the Trans-Pecos pipeline in West Texas, was arrested and his criminal history and true identity exposed. Gutierrez has not been seen since he was released on parole from California in 2002. So he's been on the run since 2002 after a long series of serious crimes. He was first imprisoned in 1984 on charges of forcible rape and drug possession with an intent to sell, according to the Houston Chronicle. Gutierrez was released in 1990, but he failed to stay out of legal trouble, according to the report. He was re-imprisoned numerous times for parole violations and then convicted in 1998 for raping a child. For having sex with a minor is how it is listed, but you know what that means.
Oh, yeah.
California authorities lost track of him. That means he's a fugitive after 2002 parole. But in November 2016, Gutierrez emerged as an environmentalist.
Really?
In the Texas protest, Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission meeting over a proposed pipeline that would carry natural gas from the state into Mexico. He became a vocal leader of the protest, eventually rising to become the activists' head of security.
Really? Oh my God.
Sounds just like Standing Rock, huh?
Yeah, the security or criminals.
Head of security and head of ceremonies. A rapist.
Wow.
Who raped a child.
Oh my God.
Head of security. Head of ceremonies.
Oh yeah.
He also was made board member of the Society of Native Nations.
Oh God, he went national.
He's sitting on the board of the Society of Native Nations. Many activists at the camp are standing by this man that they knew as Pete Heflin, despite the serious charges brought about his arrest. Lori Glover, who owns the land containing the protest site and plays a leading role in protest activities, said she was privileged, quote unquote, to have worked with him. He served his time and made a new start, Glover told the Chronicle. I was unaware of any of his past history. Despite that, I feel very privileged to have worked with Pete Heflin. Would you repeat that sentence and change Pete Heflin out and put in what he did? I feel very privileged to have worked with child rapist and multiple rapist and drug dealer Pete Ragbo
Criminal.
Gutierrez.
Criminal.
Her husband, Mark Glover, called Heflin an honorable man and wrote off his criminal history by pointing out that American Indians have an incredibly high incarceration rate.
What?
First of all, one thing has nothing to do with the other.
Exactly.
Second of all, what are you saying? That all convictions are false? That he didn't rape any children? That he didn't rape any women? And what about the violations of his parole?
Mm-hmm.
What about the fact that he's a fugitive from the law? Okay. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Glover stick their heads in the proverbial sand. I will continue. Quote, I've known Pete for 6 months and I found him to be a very honorable man and I will stand by him any day, said Mark Glover. American Indians have an incredibly high incarceration rate, and if he's served prison time, I wouldn't doubt it. But, oh, so you don't care? He's like, I wouldn't doubt he would. He was in prison? Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
But you know what? I believe in redemption, and I believe in Pete Heflin.
Wow.
That's not his name. And they go on. Pete Heflin has claimed to be a member. Check this out.
Yeah.
Remember serial rapist Red Wolf Pope that was at Standing Rock, welcomed by the spiritual leader Arbel Look-at-a-Horse, who was hanging out with the son of the ex-head of NATO, Wesley Clark Jr.?
Oh, yeah, I remember that for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Remember that he was a fake Indian?
Oh, yeah.
Turned out to be Chinese, and his whole family had been doing fake Indianness and also committing sexual assaults for generations. Turns out Pete Heflin, a.k.a. Pedro Ragbo Gutierrez, might also have misrepresented being Native American.
Oh, really?
As have so many of the people I have exposed on my show.
That's right. It's a trend.
Pretend Indianing. Because it says here in this article, Pete Heflin has claimed to be a member of the Mescalero Apache tribe, but it is unclear if that is also a misrepresentation, which seems to be code for we could not verify any of this nonsense.
You can just lie as much as you want, and we won't check.
Well, I mean, a lot of these folks, especially in the Texas Carrizo Come Crudo tribe and other tribes down there, they're not federally recognized. And they seem to have what looks like a bunch of Mexicans masquerading as Indians in their groups. Masquerading, playing, pretending Indianness, to give them that moral authority from which to look down their noses at the rest of us with. Lisa Lysigen, a protester who had donated money to the protest group using GoFundMe, wrote on Facebook, people should let his past be. Let it go. And that he should be released so he could continue his good work for the people. Wow.
Oh, jeez.
Don't care if people are put in danger. Send him out there again.
Yeah.
Let his past be. Most people have something in their past. Not raping kids and women.
Exactly.
Nah. Is that what your past is, Lisa?
Oh, yeah.
Or lice? Whatever. It's spelled L-I-S-E. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yep.
Is it lice? Anyway, Lysigen says, most people have something in their past that they are not proud of. Let him out so he can still continue his good work for the people. It's happened a long time time ago.
Yeah.
Bury it. Mm-hmm. That's what she wrote. You think predators should have those kinds of crimes forgiven and forgotten?
No, of course not. They should be charged. They should go to court. They should be able to have a defense, and they should be prosecuted.
And they should be
guilty. And they should be sexual predators
on a registry.
Registry, and there's people to know where they're living. That's normal in our society.
Wouldn't you want to know if your kids are going to be around a rapist?
Definitely.
That has raped children?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you feel you have a right to know that?
Yep.
Josh Michener, an active protester, announced he was leaving the camp that week due to personal issues, claiming leadership was being targeted. I will share a clip of him saying that. Oh, wait, no, I don't have that. That was on a recording that was from his Facebook Live, but if you go and click on the link, you can listen to him talking about that. He said they were targeting people. They find ways to find anything and everything they can to dig up from the past. In reality, Gutierrez was discovered because he presented a fake ID to local sheriffs, which is a crime.
Yeah.
And he was waiting for his wife to be released from jail because she got arrested after she was detained during the protest. His true identity and a California warrant for his arrest dating back to the 2007 were soon discovered. Gutierrez admitted his true identity to police according to an official incident report. Quote, once his identity had been verified through fingerprint scan, Heflin admitted his real name was Gutierrez and that he was wanted out of California, police wrote in an accompanying press release. He is still being detained in Texas, but he will be returned to California. Gutierrez is a registered sex offender in California due to several charges, including the rape by force charge. He is considered a moderate high risk.
Okay. He's way up there.
Yeah. I mean, what's after moderate high?
High and higher and higher.
But he had access to children who were brought to the protest site.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, they're criming and letting other people crime, you know?
Exactly. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
And this is, again, more detail. This is the Splinter article. We have another article in which it shows you what happens when a devoted activist turns out to be a rapist. Interesting commentary from the media person that wrote this. Listen to this. The
Splinter article.
I was trying to.
I'm sorry.
I was trying to read what it said.
All right, here we go. Get it back up there for you. There you go.
It says, the night that I met Jackie Hagans, which is the wife of Pete Heflin, and her husband, Pete Heflin, a.k.a. Pedro Gutierrez, a member of the Mescalero Apache tribe, as they sat outside the fire they built next to their tent. Two of the co-founders of the Society of Native Nations, they live outside of Houston, where they own a shop called North Dakota Indian Ways. Indian Ways. By the way, more on Indian Ways in a moment. But they say, this is a quote by Heflin, they say there's no natives here in Texas, but there is. They're just hid away, Heflin said. Listen to that.
Yeah, they're hiding.
They're hiding, he says. This is the same reporter that was talking about how she was very shocked of learning this news because she had met him before. This is her article of when she met him before. And she was like, he is a Mescalero Apache, just like took it for granted that he might not be. And she said, and he lives out here. He's, his wife and him own this Indian Ways shop. And he says to her, people say that there is no Indians here. And here you are talking to an Indian. How could that be?
Exactly.
And he says, they're hid.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, it's questionable whether or not he's a Mescalero Apache.
Yes.
Because it says Hispanic on his arrest sheet, right? Okay.
Right.
And then it says, Hagen's, his wife, agreed, quote, a lot of our own people didn't even know they're native, she said. She has been raised by her Cherokee grandmother, who in Hagen's words, quote, lived in a white world, and she'd only begun participating in native ceremonies in her 30s. So many people have lost their culture. Now, think about what they're saying. There's a lot of people who've never lived as native or practiced being native or thought of themselves as being native because they're actually Mexican. They don't come from like a Northern Native American federally recognized tribe with a reservation, you know. And I know that there's varying degrees of that. I'm not making any hard, fast rules about what makes someone native or indigenous, or I'm talking about whether or not people recognize their indigeneity and what that is used for. Is it used as a form of a manipulation? Is it used to literally costumize past crimes? Because it feels like in the case of these folks, that's exactly what it is. A rebranding, as I've called it in the past. Did we have another... What's next? I thought we had another article.
No, next is a Splinter article.
Okay. Let's go to that one.
All right. One moment, please.
I thought we just did that one, the Splinter article.
Oh.
Okay. What happens when a devoted activist turns out to be a convicted rapist? This was written by Esther Wang on March of 2017. It tells you a lot of the stuff that you heard in the other article we read earlier in the Beacon. But it provides a little bit more detail. And I found it very interesting because this writer says they too were shocked because they had met this Gutierrez earlier, and the writer actually goes on to try to explain to people why she was tricked and why she blindly believed in this guy, and I guess more, importantly, how did she not look into him further?
Exonerate herself for hanging out with a rapist. Okay, I see.
Pretty much like... Yeah. I just basically have to believe everyone there was telling the truth. Yep. And the most important thing about why she trusted everything that he told him, which she now recognizes was a very heavily redacted history of his life, was because everyone else in the camp trusted him and held him up. She says, I trusted him in part because it was clear to me that everyone at the encampment trusted Gutierrez as well. And he was looked up to as a Native American elder who had been involved for decades in environmental justice movements. Well, some of those he'd actually been in prison. So not altogether. Mm-hmm. But let me just say that this is the reason why the people that work with these rapists, the people that look up to them, put them up on a pedestal, call them elders, defend and protect them tooth and nail. That is what, and do not denounce them. Do not denounce this scourge within their movements publicly. That is why I feel that they share some of the responsibility for giving these people access to victims by putting them in positions of power and trust and authority in these camps and in these campaigns and movements to include now the Border Support Network, when there is question about their safety for other vulnerable people.
Yeah, how about checking out someone's past? And, when you're putting people in leadership positions and really important positions.
Head of security, head of ceremony.
Yes, ceremonies and security is like very important positions. You're not going to check them out and see who they are, see if they're, they've got a past that would put other people in danger. Jeez.
And then, of course, Frankie Arona, one of the founders of the Society of Native Nations and the founder of the Texas AIM chapter, says, I had no idea.
Yeah. News to me.
Yes. And he said that he co-founded the Society of Native Nations with Pedro Ragbo Gutierrez and his wife and others in 2016. Same year as Standing Rock.
Yeah.
That's when it was founded.
Okay.
How is he an environmentalist working for decades when he just founded the organization the year that Standing Rock happened?
Mm-hmm.
Confusing.
Yeah.
Then he says, we thought we knew him very well. Obviously, he fooled this whole community.
Yeah.
Did he fool you, though? And the reporter asks him how he's coming to terms with this news. And this is what Frankie Arona said. Now, tell me if this sounds like someone that is angry and denouncing a very serious criminal that's been a fugitive from the law for a long time. Some people, quote, this is his quote, some people will say this shows how much he cared about the movement. The fact that he was lying about his name, and the fact that he was hiding his identity, and the fact that he was a fugitive, and the fact that he got caught and arrested because he committed another crime by showing police false ID. All of that, some people might say it was a show of love, of how much he cared. What's your reaction to that, Duke?
Oh, it's a bunch of crap. He's just trying to spin it, and the criminals coming in, criming, and, the whole idea you're going to give a fake ID to law enforcement is a pretty dangerous thing to be embarking upon. It shows a sort of credibility that person has.
No, I'm talking about the fact that Frankie Arona, the guy who started this organization with him, and says, I didn't know anything about this, in response to being told about these serious crimes and having defended him when he was getting arrested, say, well, some people would say this shows how much he loves the movement.
Oh, my God.
That he would be willing to get caught and everything.
Well, he's totally ignoring the charges, and he's covering for him, which tells me he's criming with them, and he knew. He's covering up. He's minimizing it, and that's a pretty serious charges. And to just say, shows how much he loves the movement? Come on. He
goes on to say, it's also being selfish because no matter how much love and passion you have, this could have ruined us, ruined the camp, our organization, and everything. And put children and women at risk, or does that not even matter to you, Frankie? Do you care about... Oh, no. My God, this could have ruined my reputation.
Yeah.
Your very, very good and clean reputation. Is that what you're worried about? Frankie Arona?
Sounds like it.
Listen to this. He goes, for him to lie to his community, it hurts. I didn't expect him to be a saint, but I didn't expect him to be hiding all of this.
Oh, yeah.
And then they ask this Lori Glover, the co-founder of the Big Bend Defense Coalition and one of the people that owned the land where they were protesting. She says it was shocking to find out he was a child rapist and all that stuff, but I know he's a very respectful, kind, fair, generous man who spent a great deal of time learning the Native American lifeways and traditions and ceremonies, and he cares about people. And she goes on to say that, there were some bad things he did in his past, and that really bothered her, but that, he suffers a lot, He's already suffered for that. He did his time. He paid his penalty. And then he turned his life around by becoming a fugitive of the law. Is that how he turned his life around? So at the very end of this article, Arona is once again quoted. Frankie Arona. Listen to this and tell me what you think. He said, one person, again, deflecting for all of these other cases we've heard of coming out of Standing Rock and other splinter camps that happened afterwards. One person isn't going to define what we do or what this movement is and what this camp is trying to accomplish. We're not going to let that happen.
Well, one bad apple is not an excuse.
The same, we got this very, very same argument over and over again.
Yeah, and yet when you were starting to report the infiltrators and the people at Standing Rock, you were told, shh, you don't want to hurt the movement. You know, you can't expose these people. You know, and it's like people want to cover this stuff up, and it's just like it's horrible. It just does no good. You know.
And so I told you I was going to tell you about that Indian Ways store. They had a Yelp review.
Yeah.
And this is what the Yelp review said.
One moment, I'll bring that up.
It's interesting because it sounds as if, you know, they're, you know, a little confused about whether or not he's really native. Can we find the store Yelp review?
I will. It's a second one. Got it.
That's the listing, and the next one is
okay. Sorry, I made
Apache.
A mistake.
You're okay.
Okay.
That's the store. That's the Yelp. Okay, so next one is the next one is the Yelp.
Okay.
If you could bring that one up, it
Got
says,
it.
my husband and I found this shop while poking around in the buildings to see what they had. Pete, she says, is Apache. Well, we don't know that. He may be fake Indianing in a fake Indian shop. I mean, what better way to hide than change your identity? Like, you're no longer Pedro Gutierrez.
Yeah.
Now, you're Pete Heflin, a Native American and environmental activist.
That's right.
Running Indian Ways,
That's
a
right.
shop where, according to this Yelp review, he and his wife, Jackie, who's Cheyenne, are the nicest. I thought she said her grandma was Cherokee.
Yeah.
Somebody got their stuff mixed up here. And it just, listen. And then it says, the friendliest people I met, love their merchandise, reasonably priced. We've gone so many times, and they have, you know, new stuff. And then it says, heard they got robbed and had moved.
Have to find them again.
Then there's another one after this where somebody else writes that he can charge less for his pieces because he makes a lot of these pieces himself.
Okay.
So he claims to make these jewelry pieces, or I don't know what he's telling people.
Yeah.
But he has a pretty good cover out there in Texas for a while with his Indian Ways store. And as I told you, as the articles say, Pete is one of the founders of Society of Native Nations. Pete Heflin, according to this article, says that of course he's the founder of the Texas-based Society of Native Nations. And in this other article that talks about him being at the camp, we've got a headline that says that he was quoted as saying that a bunch of the kids that showed up at the camp looked good. A bunch of good-looking kids, quote, says the rapist that pipeline protest at a pipeline protest welcoming children into the camp.
Oh my God.
This actually took place, Took.
Oh, jeez.
And no concern for that, huh?
No.
Okay.
Let them get by.
I guess so. Here's the rap sheets of the way it was described. It was like a villain from a Western. That is how this newspaper described his crimes. Gutierrez's rap sheet reads like a description of a villain in an old Western. He spent 6 years in prison for a rape. Yes, you know what? This publication and many others that have written about these, criminals, they recognize these are very serious, dangerous people committing very, very serious, dangerous crimes. But the contrast, what I'm trying to show you is the contrast between the way that the people, the activists working with them react, even after they've heard what they did.
Yep.
It's strange, right?
Yeah, and it's like the
how do you not know?
The Standing Rock people the same way with that Mitchell Marcus and faking and being shot, and they're like, well, we got to give them some slack, and I believe anyone that says stuff in the beginning. They just keep on covering for people. Now,
I will tell you that both Rugabo and his wife left the board of this organization after the scandal, but Frankie Arona has not, and he is still, as of August, Frankie Arona was in this post in August, still in the Society of Native Nations.
Okay.
And he's still working, as you know, at the border with Juan Mancias, who is also posted up on the Society of Native Nations. You'll see the crossover of these organizations representing and posting up for each other. And, of course, Bobby Mason Leonard, one of the drone pilots that was out there at the camp, posts a comment on one of the pictures of the Society of Native Nations Facebook page with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, the actor, and the president of the Navajo Nation, who happens to be, according to Mason, Bobby Leonard, his nephew, his grandson.
Oh.
And in this article, in the corenews.org, it talks about another person that was at the same camp that was hanging out with Pete Heffelin, who has admitted in the past to smuggling people and getting in trouble with the law for smuggling people. And I wanted to share the article with you first.
Okay.
Here is the article of Lewis smuggling screenshot. And we'll have the link for you guys to go and check out the whole thing on your own. But it says that Luis Monsiváis Gutierrez, a criminal, an actor, an environmentalist activist, admitted to being convicted of the dangerous crime of human smuggling of an illegal immigrant across the border. This isn't the only time he's done it. He also did it in another video that we shared on our show, and I'm going to play it for you once again so he can describe. And he says, my family does this for money. Human trafficking. We're some of the good guys. Listen. It's real. Can't make this stuff up. Guy admits to being a smuggler on tape and says it's okay. Luis Monsiváis.
Get somebody on here. Just going to talk about a little bit of everything this morning. I really never know when I'm going to do a live feed. I always just feel to do one every once in a while. Oh, good. Hey, good morning. Oh, good. Good morning. I got a couple people coming on. Like I say, I'm going to continue to make my way down the Rio Grande River. I'm traveling right now just to kind of bring people up to par. I figured I'd do a live feed right now because I'm posted up at some people's property. They're so gracious to open up their property to me. And it's been a fantastic day and a half or so here, using their property as a home base. It's a safe spot. and they have Wi-Fi, so they allow me to piggyback off of them, which is really great. And I kind of want to give people an update on where I'm going to be going and what I'm going to be doing as much as I possibly can, because where I'm going is no Wi-Fi and no service, and I want to make sure people understand about where I'm at and what my intentions are. What I want to try to continue to do, since I'm in this region and I'm I guess at the hands of life in general, I'm going to make the best I possibly can out of the situation and do as much research as I can here along the border. I think it's an important issue because we have so much separation amongst the American people and amongst the people about a border wall, about migrants and asylum seekers, about border crossings. We have human traffickers that people are interested in. And these are some of the topics that I want to talk about, because I think it's important that people get another narrative of what's the truth out here. As I continue to talk to people, individual people, or interview individual people, they tell me a lot of what I suspect, that regardless the beauty of this area and the sanctuaries in this area and the parks in this region and the waterways and the people that make the money and through the Rio Grande, there will be no border wall, they say, in this area. There have been small cities like Terlingua, who has passed ordinance for a no-wall ordinance. There have been places like, as we know, we have visited the last several days, Kelsey Warren's town called Lajitas, and the employees and people there told me specifically that he has pushed for a no-wall through his area also as well. So I think it's important time of our lives to be able to have somebody out here at least trying to show and document and drone video footage and interview and see for ourselves what's really going on in these regions and what's the possibilities, because we have a lot of fear involved with our news outlets, with your president, with the people, with bigotry, with racism, with human rights violation on such a mass scale that it's seeming like you're having a wildfire of hate or a wildfire of bigotry, a wildfire of fear, let's call it. Our Wi-Fi service, I will be without Wi-Fi service and phone service for the next couple of days. I'm going to head into a region where it's very well-known crossings areas on both sides of the Rio Grande, on the Mexican side and with the south side border and the north side of the border being Texas. I think it's very important to document these areas, either specifically for myself or for a database, mental database, or just the knowledge of knowing where these are at. So I get to work with a lot of very old friends and old families. I get to meet new friends and new families that are always interested in this type of work. I would ask people to try to understand this in a bigger scale. Everybody always says, I got a message this morning from a young lady that said, I like your videos, I understand about the border crossings, I'm with you, but what about the drugs? What about the child trafficking? What about the human trafficking? Now, it is well known to my family and to myself that I worked this field for several years and was very successful in this field. And, well, I also paid my debt to society. I was also caught with this fear of human trafficking. And let me say something. I've also had sent some people have sent me personal messages that were sent a year ago or months ago about me, that people that are still on my friends list, and you know who you are. There's a group of guys, men, that and one in particular that I have the snapshot of their message saying that I would never talk to him, that I remember when he was in or I'd never associate with him, because I remember when he was in Presidio fighting against the Trans-Pecos pipeline, he had mentioned that he worked in that field, and I would never work with anybody or respect anybody who took advantage of those people. And I want to speak to you and to other people who have fears that this isn't what the news outlets have allowed you to understand. This isn't human trafficking. There is 2 or 3 different ways of human trafficking. And the way that we went about it, we were a family-run industry. We took damn good care of every individual that came with us in every route and every direction. And we have all those people that will vouch and will pull for us and for myself. We were bringing in people that were asylum seekers, were also people that wanted to get here on all scales. There was none. We would have been shut down by our bosses and our leaders in a heartbeat if there was any wrongdoing to any of our family members that we were helping. It is business. Yes, it is a money-ran business where one particular person or persons or group provided a service to be able to transport individual people that were picked and chosen by families to come towards these companies, say so to speak, because we were good at what we did. We were fair about what we did. We helped our people. And this is one of the things that I haven't talked about to many people. I will always be proud of what I've done. I will always take it with honor of the people that I helped. I will always take that to the other side, knowing that I did my part to help.
I'm confused. I mean, I know it was horrible to listen to, but I wanted you to hear that PSA for human traffickers. Because as he laid out in his, hey, we're not bad people, I've even gotten thank you notes, commercial for human trafficking.
Yeah.
He insanely says both that it is family and they would be fired by their bosses and handlers if they hurt anyone. They would never hurt other people or exploit other people. And then he says, yes, it's a business for money. And we were damn good at it.
Yeah, and he says, any of those people can vouch for me and how good of a job I did. Yeah, vouch for you that you illegally cross them across the border and they get deported. Yeah, a good voucher.
OMG. What is wrong with these people, Duke? They're so dumb. Mm-hmm. They explain all their crime in detail.
Yep.
And this is the part that you missed. The part where there's another video of him admitting this.
Yeah.
The part that you missed was he got prison time. He went to jail for human smuggling. Here's that clip. Oh my God.
Oh boy.
Oh, jeez.
I was caught with an illegal immigrant in my automobile, in my car, on the border, and they arrested me. I got fined $10,000. I got a new truck to me taken away, and I had to do 1 year probation, and I spent 7 days in jail.
Really? He's proud of that, or what?
He's mad about it. Okay. He even lost a new-to-him truck. It was new to him. He sounds like a used car salesman. Yeah. Because he's slimy.
Yeah.
He's slimy. I've already done an entire set of shows in which I talked at length about his background, and I don't want to recreate the wheel here, so I'm going to have Nemo drop the links to those other shows if you want to learn more about the history of Louis Monsivice and his crimes, because he too is a multiple-time felon. And he was also found to be at these camps But here he is posting about camp trail deer, saying on January 2017 that there's provisions and supplies being brought to his stronghold, located on a private ranch that has the Trans-Pecos pipeline running right through it. This place has given me a safe place to monitor all aspects of the pipeline construction without the threat of being arrested or harassed by pipeline security or law enforcement. I have several of these places throughout the pipeline construction, and one so far in Mexico. I was afraid that all of these people who I have said are incredibly dangerous would be getting involved with the asylum seekers, as you heard him repeat over and over again. That is exactly what they did in this border support network. And Luis Monsiváis has also gotten in trouble for other crimes like trespassing, and he's not afraid to continue to support his crimes and admit that on tape as well. Here he is doing that about trespassing.
Really?
Yes.
And let me tell you, when you do this type of thing, when you hear the equipment, those guys can't hear. The majority of the guys are focused in on their job and that equipment and what's going on. So out here in the perimeter, around certain areas, you're safe. You just got to be quiet. I don't have the right colors on. I don't have any camouflage. I didn't expect this, but I should have. So I'm going to try to get you guys a little bit closer. Oh, that's them right there. That's all of them. That's all of them right there. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to turn the camera around. Oh, they're all right there. Hang on. Ooh, there's a lot of guys there. There's a lot of guys there. Yeah, that's them right there. I'm going to just stick the phone out. That's them right there. That's 150 feet. That's 150 feet away from me. They got about...
Oh, my God.
Remember, this guy is a stunt man in multiple movies. He's an actor, for real. So the one thing he has a knack for is pretending and lying. That's, he's an expert at that, really. And making things look like he's in an action movie. Oh, my God, they're here.
They're right there.
They're right there.
They're right there.
150 feet.
They're going to shoot the phone out of my hand.
Okay. The other thing is he even gives instructions for other people to commit crimes like he does in this video, again about trespassing and how you go about it.
Oh, really?
Yes. Trespassing for dummies.
Yes.
One of the big guys, one of the head guys came up to me and he said, and that's where I kind of put my finger on the camera, and I was acting like I was on the phone. That's what I was doing. So the jibber jabber, it's just me pretending like I'm talking to somebody on the telephone, trying to do the live feed as I'm going, and that's one of the things that I learned to do. They don't know that you're filming, so that's one of the key things that I tried to do. And he stopped me and he said, right away, right in front of me, he stopped dead in my tracks, right in front of me, boom, who are you? Who are you with? I said, I lied. Simple. Got to get yourself out of trouble, got to make sure you stay safe. I said, I'm looking for a lost calf. I can't find the calf. The mother is at the barn, she's crying, and the calf has been missing a couple of hours. And what did he say? Yeah, I saw one right over towards that direction about an hour ago. And I said, I appreciate it. And that's when I started walking away. Now, I did not run.
Don't run.
Stay calm. Walked away as far as you could. Get into the woods. And that's when you bail. So,
and that's when you bail.
Yeah, everyone needs you need a calf. Get yourself a calf and you say, I'm looking for a lost calf. And then you pretend you're talking on your phone and go like this. I'm looking for my lost calf. Can you help me out? Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. They're so dumb. It makes you like laugh yourself silly. And it also makes me wonder how you continue to support anyone like this financially. Because people do. He also admits to committing crimes with drones. Remember, he was the one that did a video looking for someone to transport peyote.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, he also wants to traffic mescaline.
Yeah. Anyone got mescaline, just give me a call.
Hey, I need to transport bigger amounts of I was like, what are you doing? Okay, here is another article. This one talks about how he vows that he will continue to violate the law with drones. And here he is in the video talking about why that is his right. Dang it. He will do it if he wants to.
That's right.
Because nobody on this planet is going to convince me that flying my drone over these sites is illegal. I say, come get me.
What does he think
Bring
he
it.
is? Like Bruce Willis?
Come get me.
Come and get me. You know? It's crazy. And in this article that you just showed, if you could go back to that article where it says that he's going to continue violating the law. Luis Monsiváis vows violations. Yes. In that article, if you would scroll up and go to the bottom of it. Oops.
Oops. That's
Whoops.
Wrong one.
Whoopsie daisy.
There we go. That's the right one.
Here we go. Oh,
The other way.
shoot. No.
That's all I got, I guess.
No. Let's
Sorry.
see. Go to the Russian-backed agenda. That's got this. That one.
All right. Want me to scroll up?
Yep. Okay, so right at the bottom here, it says Gutierrez, no stranger to criminal activity in his own past, attended the Standing Rock protests where protesters issued a litany of brutal threats aimed at law enforcement and sought to use Molotov cocktails, rocks, arson, and roadblocks. Gutierrez vowed to ignore by the way, folks, he also has the last name of Gutierrez. Okay?
That's right. Yep.
This is not the Gutierrez of the, I don't know if they're related.
Yeah.
If they're related, let me know. Okay?
All right.
They might be related. Anyway, Gutierrez vowed to ignore new Texas drone laws, and it's just one of the latest in the long line of criminal tactics used by the environmentalist left to push their Russian-backed agenda. So I went to check out what this Russian-backed agenda was about, and it pointed me to this Core News article where Tucker Carlson is talking about the collusion of American environmental groups in funding, of Russian money being funneled into these environmentalist groups. And here's a clip of the video that was from the interview that he did with Kevin Mooney.
This is an amazing story. In a newly released letter to the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, Republican Congressman Lamar Smith and Randy Weber say that Russia is working with American environmental groups to spread misinformation about hydraulic fracking, it's called. The goal, get it banned, fracking banned in the U.S., which of course would hurt the U.S. energy sector and benefit the Russian energy sector. It's all about the price of gas. Kevin Mooney is an investigative reporter with the Daily Signal, and he joins us now with details. Kevin, the story's almost too good. It's almost like you almost couldn't make this up. Actually, they did intervene, but on behalf of Greenpeace. Is that an overstatement? How did this happen?
Well, let's give Russia credit. They know how to look out for their own interests. But
Right.
the problem is they're using our own environmental movement to advance their interests. And here's the really big bombshell. And let's thank Representative Lamar Smith and his colleagues with oversight of our energy who dug into this and connected the dots. Russia is using a shell company in Bermuda, the funnel company through which then goes to a group called the Sea Change Foundation, which then disperses tens of millions of dollars to their own environmental organizations in the U.S., which in turn carry the water for Vladimir Putin to slam and smear the innovative practice of fracking, which has enabled this shale gas revolution. Which, as you know, has really greatly bolstered America's
And
geopolitical
undercut
standing.
Russia's position in the energy markets.
Right.
Our official position on this show is we are skeptical of all Russia stories until we see the proof. So the allegation is that the Russian government has funneled money pretty directly to American environmental groups. How do we know that's true?
Well, we know it from our own intelligence community. If you go to thedailysignal.com, which is our news site at the Heritage Foundation, they lay this out with a letter from Lamar Smith. They've known this for years. In fact, I'll even cite Hillary Clinton, who was Secretary of State, cited phony environmental groups that were being funded by the Russians. She described herself as an environmentalist and expressed frustration that the Russians were propping up these environmental organizations to advance their own interests. This is really about protecting Gazprom, Russia's large oil company, because if the United States fracking revolution and the shale gas revolution accelerates, it puts Gazprom and Russia back on their heels.
Well, their entire economy is built on. At least this story has an explicable, logical motive. The idea that Trump got the support of Putin because they're both fascists and they like each other. I mean, it's not a compelling motive. This is a clear motive that makes economic sense, and so it's easier to buy. Is it legal? If this is true, if we learn that U.S. environmental groups took money from the Russian government, is that against the law?
Well, that's why Lamar Smith and other congressmen are calling for the U.S. Treasury Department to conduct an investigation into this. Let's at least look at the financing. If you're going to ask all these questions about how much Russia's influencing elections or how much influence they have on Donald Trump, then it logically follows we should look at something that has a tangible connection. It would make sense for Russia to try to stop fracking exercises in the United States, because if we succeed, we can liberate Poland and most of Europe from their economic dependence on Russia.
Well, that's the key. So finally, we know that there's an awful lot of anti-energy, anti-natural gas, anti-fracking propaganda on Russian state television in the U.S. RT, which is otherwise a very left-wing channel. It's not like a pro-Trump channel, that's for sure. Are we certain that that is intentional, that the Russian government wants RT to spread anti-fracking propaganda to hike the price of U.S. natural gas?
I'm not sure it's intentional. I think some folks are just being duped. I think it's a combination of the two. You have certain levels of the environmental movement that may be compliant in this or complicit on a certain level.
Right.
And you have rank and file sincere environmentalists who I think are just being duped and manipulated, which Russia is very adept at doing.
So I guess what we're looking at here is the wholesale hacking of our environmental establishment.
Yeah, I mean, the modern environmental movement has nothing to do with environmentalism as it's defined in the dictionary.
I've absolutely noticed that. It seems like an outrage to me. Kevin Mooney, thank you for that. That was fascinating.
Thanks so much.
One open letter to an Antifa website is calling for worldwide action against fascists.
Yeah, the Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. You know, when I was in grade school, I had a substitute nun that came in and said the Russians will be here by Christmas. And I was really scared. I wanted to take this moment to say to everybody, thank you for your support. Thank you for, connecting with us and going to our website, watching our shows. I know the past week or so, with the holidays that we haven't been online much because we're spending time with family. But I do want to thank everybody for working with us, supporting us. And as Cindy said earlier, you can find us on the web at kpppfm.com. That's where we put all of our shows. We put up audio files. Sometimes they play on the air here locally, and sometimes they don't. But I tend to put audio files up, so if you're driving down the road, don't want to watch the video, you can actually just listen to the podcast. That's kpppfm.com. Also, when you're there, you can look around and read a little bit more about our nonprofit organization. We are a nonprofit community-supported organization. We don't sell advertising, but we have what's called underwriting. And if you'd like to make a donation to us through underwriting, you can do things like our most recent underwriter, Make My Life Great Again, PalomaForTrump.com, PalomaForTrump.com. You can basically take your business and give us a piece, and we'll modify it so we can put it on the air. And you make a tax-deductible donation to our organization. Also, if you just want to make a donation to help us with our efforts, help fund the station, because we're listener-funded, you make a donation by going to kpppfm.com/donate. And you can make a tax-deductible donation. In fact, this is the time of year where you're making your last tax-deductible donations of the year. And if you'd like to make a year-end contribution to our organization, go to kpppfm.com/donate. It has a link there and also has instructions if you just want to mail us a check. And thank you all of you who have supported us through the years, because we're going on our 4th year of being on the air, and also probably our 2nd year of doing live streams. So we've combined YouTube, which is at Duke1517. If you want to go to our channel and subscribe to the channel, you'll find out when we're going live on there, because we switch them up between Facebook and YouTube Live. This specific show I thought would be really good for Facebook, because we've done so much with Standing Rock, so much with the caravans, and these characters have shown up in our shows for years, basically. And I thought it would be really important to give the Facebook audience a chance to see this video first, to see this live stream first, and we'll just upload it to YouTube, and people that follow us on YouTube will be able to watch this story. But we really appreciate everyone who's been helping us. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you sharing, and it's been a great show, and thank you for your support.
Go over to Duke1517 on YouTube and subscribe and hit the little bell so you get the notifications. And that way, if you're having trouble watching the live streams when we do the taping on Facebook, you can always watch them on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And it'll look pristine. It'll look great. And I wanted to just say that there's an article in the Washington Post, which I've already shared in the comments, excuse me, of this show, which I wanted to share with you. I don't have a graphic for this one because I forgot to put it in there. Okay. But I did put the link in the comments of the show. And again, it's the not Washington Post, WashingtonTimes.com. And it's titled Key Republicans Call for Probe to See if Russia Funded Anti-Fracking Groups. And it talks about the same things that they were talking about in that interview with Tucker Carlson. And then it says at the end, and I found this piece particularly interesting, that the letter pointed to reports that Russian entities may have funneled millions through a Bermuda shell company, Klein Limited, to the Sea Change Foundation in San Francisco, which has in turn provided grants on anti-fracking groups like the Sierra Club.
Oh.
And the League of Conservative Voters Education Fund. And you just heard the Sierra Club defending the whole fiasco with Pete Heflin.
Yeah, that's right.
AKA Pete Gutierrez, just like the activists did. And they were saying, oh, well, one man doesn't define anything. We don't think anything's going to change.
Yeah.
Here's another little interesting piece about the Sierra Club. We've seen them at that camp in Texas with Frankie Arona and Juan B. Mancias. Guess what? Looks like there may be Russian money going in to these organizations. And interestingly enough, Frankie Arona was recently, this year in February, in a video interview with somebody from the, I believe, Texas Sierra Club. I didn't quite catch it. Here's some video clips here's the screen capture from YouTube so that you can see where to go find this yourselves. It's Indigenous Resistance, titled Indigenous Resistance, Juan Mancias and Frankie Arona. And the channel's name is Deceleration. Okay. It was just February 25th. It's only got 134 views. This is 2019, right?
Right.
So, here's the clips from that video. Let's see if I can turn it up there in the beginning so you can hear him announce what state's Sierra Club he's in.
Okay.
I want to be able to hear that.
Here we go.
From the very beginning. Okay.
Well, you sit here and be on camera, so. Oh man, I don't want to be on camera. All right. Well, let's see which camera we're gonna use. I'm Greg Harmon. I know most of y'all in here, but some of y'all. And I work with the State Sierra Club. And been in San Antonio about 10 years. It's been about 10 years, I guess, that I first met Juan. You're over here at the Whitty, giving us grief over their bundle burials and everything that they've got back in collections, and you gave me some education on some of the issues that are happening around that kind of work. And Frankie, just a few years since really Dakota Access and Standing Rock, we first kind of hooked up and saw what you guys are doing up there, And when I saw you both you got into my Facebook feed, with all the selfies and the videos from San Francisco, I thought, I needed to talk with y'all when you came back. And this was the Global Climate Action Summit that they just held. And it was significant. A lot of people were watching it, I think, because, a year ago, June 1, Trump got out of the Paris Agreement. And so we're now the only country on the planet that is not committed, has not at least verbally committed to working together to try to solve our global climate crisis together. And a lot of people in San Antonio.
Okay. So we got the Sierra Club talking and supporting them. They have in the past. What are the chances that they just have amnesia about the two felons that they've been working closely with?
Yeah, really.
Like Pete Heflin, Pedro Gutierrez, a.k.a. Pedro Gutierrez, really. And also Luis Monsiváis Gutierrez.
Exactly.
Candelera Gutierrez, because he's got another name. What are the chances lightning could strike thrice or more? I think it's pretty likely because we've seen it a lot. And here is more information on Mr. Arona. This is his information on his age. So we have his full name is V. Arona. He's at 43 years of age from San Antonio, Texas. And if you scroll down, it will tell you that there's a current address, and his first name is Frank. And then if you go to the next one, it gives you his date of birth and aliases. His date of birth is in October of 76. He's a Libra. And he goes by the alias Frank Martinez, as well as Frank J. Arona. So here's his past employment, and it shows Society of Native Nations. When was the employment started? January of 2016. Okay? That's not a long time ago. What was his employment before that? Frankie's employment before that was the Dreamcatcher Society. And that's a couple more. Nope, it's on the next one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There it is. When did that employment start? Same time as his Society of Native Nations, 1/29/16. And remember, he founded the Society of Native Nations. But guess what? He also founded the Dreamcatchers Academy. So basically, he's been working for organizations he created himself. And you know who his co-founder was, right? Here's his history of addresses in the past. He's lived in San Antonio. Looks like he's lived in Texas a lot and California, right? Texas, California. And he's also a registered sex offender, or was at some point. He's on the sex offender registry, according to this. And if you look at what it was for, it says it was for rape. In 1995, to be exact.
Wow.
You can see that it says offense, rape, and post 10-year, I'm assuming might mean that he was supposed to be registered on the sex registry for 10 years. His sentence was 6 years. So usually sometimes they give you some number of years that you have to be on the registry.
Yeah.
And here's a property that he had. This one he has with a woman named Roxanne. And it's a pretty high value number for that home.
Oh, wow.
$248,000 home. Here's another property owned by Maida and him. Another high value property, $229,700 for a self-employed, started his own 2 orgs and had been in prison for 6 years at some point for rape. I mean,
wow.
That's a lucky dude, right?
Yep.
Look at his cars. Here are some vehicle registrations. One of them is for a BMW.
Okay.
And this other one below is for a Cadillac Escalade. And there was another one that was registered to a Ford F-150 that was registered under an alias. So I couldn't know for sure if it was his, although I think I saw a picture of him with the Ford F-150.
Oh, I think we saw that in that show.
In this show?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it is his. And also, this shows he was the founder, I guess, the person that founded the corporate filings, the businesses of the AIM movement for Texas and the Dreamcatcher Academy. So, wow. That's 3 dudes. All right around in the same camp. All 3 with violent, dangerous felonies that are proud of their human trafficking that they've done. They even get thank you cards. And where are they today? Why, they are fighting against poop in California. Yes, Louis Monsivice, who, by the way, has never been on the West Coast, he claims, is now on the West Coast thanks to a sponsor. I don't know who this dude is, but really? You had to sponsor him? You had to take this caca detective out, fake detective out to pet detective out to California? California, if you can figure out who this guy is, I don't know if you want to thank him for what he's done for California, but he's going to but Louis is going to thank him in this video. So here's a clip of his thank you for his sponsors.
Thank you to the sponsors.
Yep.
So I've got some things going on today. And more important, I just want to thank my sponsor. I know you watch from a distance, and I want to say thank you so much. So much for what you did for me, what you have done for me. Thank you.
There's a woman that died, right?
No. I just told you he's in California.
Okay.
He's in Laguna
So
Beach.
I'll be sporting my innocent bystander shirt today. But
Ha ha ha, that's so funny.
I just want to take a minute. Hi Julianne, hi Sherry, hi everybody. I'm just super pleased with my temporary position here in California, and I want to thank Michael and all of his family and all of his friends for bringing me to California, giving me such a great place, and believing in me, and trusting in me, and pushing me. More than that, you're pushing me, and I love it. I feel like I'm in a crystal ball, and they are monitoring and looking, you know, and every once in a while they'll poke their head in. And I've never had anybody in my life that would tell me, you know, good work, we love what you're doing, but we would like you to be more aggressive. So I've hit the jackpot, so to speak, in new friendships and new sponsor. And that's the bottom line here. I'm being sponsored to be here.
By
so
Dr.
any of the extra
Evil?
funds that I make from any of the stuff that I do, from the side jobs that I do, it gets to go to my gas to take me to the places like I'm going to go today. I'm going to go today, and I'm going to show you personally today an environmental criminal, a bunch of people that have polluted our ocean just over the Thanksgiving holiday while we were stuffing down, or you were, I did it, while you were stuffing down turkey and pie, rather if it's pumpkin pie or pussy pie, they were polluting our waterways. And I think that it's very important that I am given or I receive or I take on this platform this type of sponsorship, because it gets me here to the West Coast. And I feel that these companies and these individuals, they hide behind names. Like this one is hiding behind a golf course.
What?
He just said that he has just had the perfect marriage of sponsor to con artivist, fake mercenary activist that he's ever had, because no one ever said, hey, Lewis, you felon that continues to go from state to state committing more frauds and more crimes. How would you like to stay at my house? And also, could you be more aggressive than you are now? Please.
And here's some cash.
Yes, and here's some money. So he's like bowing.
Yes.
Like he's in church or something.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. He's like so thankful. He's like, you've unleashed me. I can be more crazy.
Yep, than I have been.
Than I already. Who is his sponsor?
Who is it? Who is it? Do you know?
I don't know. How many? I Dr. Evil, I said. Who else could it be?
Don't know.
I don't know. It seems like a supervillain type of move.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
like why would you do that to people in California? They don't deserve that.
True.
I mean, say what you will about California, they don't deserve Louis Monsiváis. This is an article in the Wire, the Daily Wire, that outlines other crimes that took place at Standing Rock, because of course what I presented to you today in great detail is only the tip of the iceberg as to the types and flavors and sizes of crimes that occurred at Standing Rock, including rape.
Yeah.
And remember, we're talking about the fraud behind this rhetoric around the leaders in missing and murdered Indigenous organizations, groups, and campaigns, many of whom are abusers, many of whom are rapists, offenders that should be nowhere near the topic, the cause. They're cloaking themselves, they're rebranding themselves, and they're positioning themselves to collect money and fame off of the victims of a crime they committed. If that isn't the most stunningly hypocritical and offensive thing you can imagine, I don't know if there's help for you. But somehow the Rolling Stone actually stomached giving people a pass on hiding rape, on not reporting rape, and doing so in some kind of institutional fashion like they did at Standing Rock. And this article in the Daily Wire critiques the Rolling Stone article, this long, like 1,400 word expose about, the Standing Rock encampment. But, they only devoted a very small piece of the article to talking about the rape that had happened there. And this article critiqued the Rolling Stone and the whole idea that this was given a pass by the Rolling Stone, that they basically were like, yeah, I mean, a rape happened, but it's not really, that big of a deal. And it says in the caption under the photo, the decision to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline is a victory for campaigners. That's political campaigners, like Bernie Sanders, you mean? AOC, like blah, blah, blah. The list goes on, as you know. Water protectors, activist journalists, and rape enablers everywhere. Wow. I think I had never heard anything so true.
Yep.
And I've said it before. I hadn't seen it put so concisely into a subhead like that. But yes, agreed. And in this screenshot from this article in the Daily Wire, you can understand what is basically the hypocrisy of Rolling Stone and the Native American people protecting rapists. It says, in the description of Standing Rock, Rolling Stone's reporter Saul, Elbine rambles for 1,200 to 1,400 words in the article before letting readers know that a young woman staying there was the victim of an attempted rape and that camp leadership did not report it or the perpetrator's name to law enforcement. Instead, it dealt with it internally, quote unquote. The alleged perpetrators were shamed, quote unquote, and expelled from the camp with his anonymity intact and free to rape in the future. I couldn't finish reading that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Free to rape in the future, wherever and whenever he wants. And in another part of this article critiquing this Rolling Stone article, puff piece, really, it talks about how it says that Saul Elbstein had also been told how the details were not passed on to the authorities to potentially spare further victims. What? But he displayed a complete lack of empathy for the victim and a lack of journalistic curiosity about the cover-up. Instead, Rolling Stone portrays the rape cover-up at Standing Rock as a rebellious act of a self-governance by plucky natives. Rolling Stone, it seems, is only interested in rape when it can claim falsely that the perpetrators were white men or that the cover-up is by white administrators. There's no outrage when the assault is on Native American in a Native American camp and the cover-up is by Native American leadership. Exactly. And by the way, many of them came from a movement prior to Standing Rock called Occupy Wall Street, where there was also a lot of raping going on. In fact, the magazine is further criticized, saying, of course, the magazine that seems interested in rape culture, they could have asked if there is a rape culture. They would have to ask if there is a rape culture at these protest camps beloved by the left. There were so many sexual assaults at the Occupy Wall Street protest camp that eventually women had to have separate and guarded sleeping quarters to protect them from sexual predators.
Wow.
I know the answer to that question about the rape culture being so rampant in these places, these camps that are beloved by the left. And the answer is yes.
Yes.
There is. It's frightening, and it's also part of the leadership of people that are supposed to be protecting the sacred and the missing and murdered Indigenous women, and it needs to be exposed. So thank you for being with me, a Mexican Crossing Lines, and my co-host,
Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP, Fargo-Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Be here for our next show on a Mexican Crossing Lines. Thank you.